Pop in, say hi. If you've never come into one of my lives before, I'm Cindy. I explore the inside and the outside. Give me 1 second. I'm wearing a sundress that just goes underneath my wheels and gets tangled up. It is a hot one today. Oh my goodness. 45 degrees Celsius with the, what is that? The humidity in the air. That's 113 degrees in Fahrenheit. That's absolutely crazy. I looked at the map of North America to see what the weather's looking across the board, and it looks like North and South Dakota, Montana is getting hit pretty good with this really crazy hot weather. California, I was looking at the map, it was in the same color zone, so in that hot weather. But I'm not quite sure because when I think of California, I think of a very hot state. It's one of those tourist states, and it's a place where people go where it's nice and hot and warm and sunny. So I'm not sure if that's the norm for that state in this time of year. But North Dakota, South Dakota, Montana, we are getting hit. I'm including ourselves here in Manitoba. The cool weather's going to come in a couple of days. So we have one more day to trudge through. And this is dangerous weather. It really is. When you mix it with the humidity, I was really kind of proud. I walked to the grocery store today, and there was a lady with a big cooler with wheels on it, and she was giving away waters and Gatorades on ice today, and I thought that's so amazing. I stopped and let her know how amazing I thought it was, but she was just offering it to anybody who was struggling with the heat. How are you doing today, Andrew, in the heat? It's been a while since you've been first in. How's the weather been going on in your state, right? In Indiana. How is Indiana doing in the weather? I was just saying 45 Celsius with the humidity today, which is 113 degrees Fahrenheit. Crazy. I can't believe it is that hot. It's just incredible. I don't remember a time this early in the summer where we've had heat like this. We're usually looking forward. This is beach weather. My sister and her family and my niece and her friends, they were all at the beach yesterday. Yes, Manitoba has beaches. We have a 14,000 kilometer lake. If you look at the map of North America and you look plunk right in the middle of Canada, you will see Manitoba's two largest lakes. We have Lake Manitoba, Lake Winnipeg. It's not considered part of the Great Lakes, unfortunate for the rest of the country, because we have the monopoly on that fresh water, right? And that's a lot of water. 14, 14 or 24,000 kilometers. Absolutely huge lakes. And yes, they have beaches and waves. And, it's something that I do appreciate about this province, that I can feel safe in going into the water because I can trust there's no sharks in there, right? It's the whole reason why I don't go into the ocean. Well, number one, there are no oceans where I live. But, even as a kid, I think I was like 12 years old when I stopped going into the ocean. I used to swim all the way out to the barges. I loved the water so much. I was actually in competitive swimming. up until about that same age of 12 years old. That's when I got a little chunky, didn't feel comfortable in bathing suits, and I gave up that passion of swimming. I still love swimming, I still go swimming, but I do the public swimming pools. But I have no problem doing the lakes. I really do love swimming in the lakes. But again, just for that reason, is there's no sharks. Okay, let's see what Andrew says here. Seasonal here in Bloomington and throughout Indiana. For now, I'd say it's typical July weather. Well, that's good to hear, Andrew. But prepare. I hope you have some good air conditioning. My sister gave me a fan today, an upright fan. I had two really nice upright fans. One I hung upside down over my side of the bed. The whole bed's mine, but I'm kind of particular about where I sleep, and I hang it from the wall so it can just blast me in the face when I'm sleeping. It helps me to have good sleepies. And I had two fans, one on one side of the bed, the other one on the other side of the bed, and then I had my air conditioner turned around, blasting me at the feet level, right? Coming up. And oh my goodness, right? Even in the summertime, I had good sleepies. But I tell you, the air conditioning is struggling to keep my apartment clear. I have a thermometer in the kitchen area and not even cooking, and I'm like at 85 degrees, which is about 75 Celsius in the kitchen. But if I'm sitting here right in my chair, like I said, I got the air conditioner blasting on me right in front of me. I'm grateful that it doesn't interfere with the sound of my live shows, right? I don't know why it doesn't, but it doesn't. But I'm grateful for that. And then today I mounted my little USB air conditioner here just to give me a little bit extra air movement. And then I've got, for the first time, I'm so glad that I draped my windows. I love my picture windows. I have never covered my picture windows just so that I can always look out at the legislative building and the downtown landscape. But because of the heat, I had to put up some kind of reflective barriers to keep the apartment as cool as I possibly can. Yeah, it is hot. So I suspect, Andrew, that weather's coming your way. It's already starting to leave. It's already starting to leave Alberta, and usually what happens is we get the Alberta weather. It's just the way the wind blows, right? That we usually get that weather in northern Alberta. We get it about 16 hours later, depending on the wind, right? So we have one more day in this kind of crazy weather, and I hope everybody is managing okay. I tell you, I live in a building, Andrew, that we have over 200 suites in this apartment building that I live in, and there are lots of vulnerable in this building, lots of seniors and elderlies and people with disabilities, right, in this building, and lots of low income. These apartments are fairly inexpensive. That there are lots of low incomes in this apartment building too. And I suspect that a lot of them, and I know for a fact because I make inquiries, right? That there are a lot of people in this building that don't have access to an air conditioner, and you can't just put a window air conditioner. The policies of the building says no, just because we are a high rise, right? That we can't have the window air conditioners just in case they're not properly mounted, and they should fall out the window because we've got seating area down below at the bottom of the building, right? So for safety reasons, there are no window air conditioners allowed. So if you have an air conditioner, It's a portable one. And if you know anything about portable air conditioners, they're very, very expensive. Recently, we had some extra hot and humid weather. Sounds like it may be circling back on us. Yeah, I suspect uh, we're going to get cooled off for just a couple of days before we go back into those mid 30 temperatures in Celsius. But those couple of days will be much appreciated. Like, we like the hot weather here, we really do. But if you can break it up so we can have a couple of cool days to get the chores done and stuff, like who wants to be gardening and mowing grass and painting the house and cleaning eaves troughs when it's this hot, right? Probably not even being safe to be up on a roof because, yeah, the way the roofs absorb the heat from the sun, I bet you the roofs are super, super hot. Also trying to keep an eye on what's going on with the forest fires. Northern Ontario has got over 100 forest fires going on right now. So, in keeping an eye, that weather that cools off and possibly gives us some rain would be much appreciated just to keep those forest fires a little bit more under control. They say this El Nino is going to go on right until probably the middle of December, right? Maybe even possibly push it to January, which is going to make it a very, very mild winter if it does. Not necessarily mild. The El Ninos, what they do is they do crazy weather. So it's that weather that, well, we already don't know how to keep track of the weather, how to control the weather. It's one thing mankind has not figured out. So crazy weather, right? We look at the Weather Channel and we take wild guesses as it is. So we're just going to ride those waves and see how it turns out. Today, uh, I woke up this morning, and even though I have an air conditioner and I had this little fan, I got a big one now, but I had this little fan over my pillow so that I could get at least a little bit of cool movement of air over my face. I woke up this morning going, "Oh my goodness, how did my sister manage to get any sleep last night?" And we're talking about Tracy, who's had, right? She's had a crazy few years, more than a few years now. And we're trying to move her out, right, of these little shenanigans that life is throwing at her. And it's important, especially, from my set of ideas and understandings, is that morality, to make sure, not morality, morale, that her morale is kept up, that she is optimistic, she is cheerful, but more importantly, that she is comfortable. And she's in a big, giant boot cast right now because, yes, she tripped in her bathroom and smashed her foot all up into little bits and pieces, even cut herself. The cut got infected. Her foot blew up, like literally got all inflamed. She went to the hospital after 2 weeks to find out she had broken all kinds of bones in her foot. And so they can't even put her in a cast yet because of this sore that she got when she hurt herself in falling in her bathroom floor in the middle of the night, right? I always keep my light on, right, in the bath. I know it's not good for electricity and saving electricity and stuff, but as you become more mature, you have to make sure. I've got night lights plugged in and stuff. There's a little bit of a glow, but to have the bathroom light on, that I can make sure that I've got a little runway till I get in there, do business, and then be able to crawl right back into bed because I'm doing it probably more than 50% asleep, right? And I fall right back to sleep afterwards. But I understand my sister does the same thing, and I don't want her to hurt herself. So I phoned her this morning and I sent her off I went into Marketplace and I found a couple of air conditioners like I have because she has to have this kind. She's got a good one in the living room, but the air doesn't move to the bedroom, right? And the cats are in there. They sleep in there all day. It's so hot and miserable. And I sent her these shares and I said, phone these people right away. This heat wave is here. They're not going to last. See if you can get a deal, maybe $50 off or something on these air conditioners. Hello, Owen, on these air conditioners, and I'll install it for you. And I'll ask my brother-in-law. Phone him right now. Phone Ian. Is my brother-in-law. He's just the sweetest guy. Well, I have another sweet. I have a couple of really sweet brother-in-laws, but Ian is another one. And I said he'll go, and he'll pick it up, and we'll get that air conditioner in your window so that you can sleep at night. And she's all hoeing and humming. And then she says, well, maybe somebody can lend me one. Alice has got one. And I went, oh my goodness, Alice does have one. But she has a wall one too, a brand new one that works really good. So I phoned phoned my sister Alice. Alice says, sure, Tracy wants the air conditioner. She can borrow the air conditioner. And so I said, well, we're all meeting on Tuesday, right? We're getting together Tuesday as a family. I says, maybe can you bring it on Tuesday with you? She says, well, maybe we should do it this afternoon. I went, perfect, perfect. Pick me up in a half an hour. And she did. I went to the dollar store. I picked up some corrugated plastic and some packing tape so I could make a proper window mount for this air conditioner. And then other brother-in-law was with her, and we got the air conditioner up into her apartment, and my brother-in-law installed it. I didn't even have to install it, right? And that bedroom cooled off so good. And my sister had a really good air conditioner, like it was 15 BTUs. And I was looking for high BTU air conditioners for her before I shared a couple of them that I found on Facebook. And the highest ones that I could find is I found one that was 12, and I was so excited. But then there was one that was $50 cheaper, but it was only 6,000 BTU, right? But mine is 8,000 BTU, and it really wasn't quite good enough in keeping me comfortable last night, right? I like things to be like a refrigerator. Didn't quite make it. The first thought that came to me when I woke up this morning was, oh my goodness, how did Tracy manage the night? I hope she's sleeping on the couch in the living room. But her cats won't leave the bedroom. The cats love the bed in the bedroom. And so she refuses to sleep on the couch. And so me and my sister, we went over there. We got the air conditioner installed. She messaged me to say thank you. I thought she would have taken a nap just to try it out, but she says she's going to wait until she goes to bed tonight to try it out. And I'm convinced she's going to sleep so much better tonight. And my sister said she can have it for the whole summer because her air conditioner at home works really, really good. So she wasn't even using it. So yeah, 15,000 BTUs. That would cool off her entire apartment. That would cool off my entire apartment. I can barely move out of my chair. I had to do some running around, did the groceries, had to go to the budget store to get that corrugated plastic and packing tape so we could do a good job. And oh my goodness, right? And then I was thinking, oh, maybe I'll walk home before I do my live. And I said, don't be a silly girl, Cindy, right? Then my sister said, you want to ride home? And I said, yes, please. And that's when my other sister said, "Oh, I don't need this fan. Do you need this fan?" I went, "Yeah, yes, please." And then I came home and I cleaned all the fuzz balls off it and everything, and I hung it from the ceiling. It's on right now. It's going to do wonders for me, right? What you get is what you give. It is 100% the truth. I have seen it happen that way so many times. I pay attention to these things, especially when things are not going so well for me and it's being directed at me. And I just leave it in the hands of whoever, whatever, and there are always lessons to be held in that because I pay attention. You get what you give, right? We don't need to fight our own battles. We don't need to give what we get, right? We just have to get what we give. And I try to keep that in mind in all my interactions. And it's not in a contractual kind of way. It's kind of nice when, it's that little bit of reciprocation, when somebody says thank you, right? Or somebody helps you with something that you're struggling with. But the idea is just to do it from the heart and appreciate that that's going to be good enough, that somehow that's going to come back for you, not necessarily in the by the same people. Sometimes life just divvies out little miracles on their own, and you have to appreciate it for that, right? Yeah, pretty amazing. How's the weather where you are, Owen? Oh, I don't think you're too far away from Andrew, but how's the weather going on? I was saying that with the humidity in the air, it's plus 45 Celsius here in Winnipeg today. That's 113 degrees Fahrenheit. So hot, right? I just basically, yesterday and today, just basically as much as I could, just sit in my chair. I have a book that I'm reading, I have topics that I'm digging into, right? Important topics, topics that I thought I was knowledgeable in all honesty, because one of those words, right, that I kind of took to heart, when I first woke up to some of these ideas is was the word kindness. And in that idea of you get what you give, it was kind of in the direction that I was moving in. But, I was watching a thought leader out there presenting his perspective today, and he was really quite right in some of the things that he was saying, that when you are extra kind, people quite often will take advantage of that, right? That kindness and make it work for themselves or make that person work for them. And, I know from my own experiences, especially in jobs that I had, that was truly the case. And because it fits in with that idea, you guys hear me all the time saying, that I don't always believe in turning the other cheek, right? Yes, I understand that, sometimes, all the time, you get what you give. But the idea when I say don't turn the other cheek, it's not to let that person or that circumstance go by without them knowing that you know exactly what they did, or letting them know that what they did was not acceptable, it wasn't proper, it wasn't kind. Because I feel sometimes, that if we don't do that, right, in being the receiver of that unkindness, right, or that unkind action, that you're giving somebody permission to go off and do that to somebody else. and and I was one quite often who didn't turn the other cheek. Sometimes, when it concerned myself, when it was directed at me, sometimes I would say, I can't be bothered, right? That person's just not going to get it, or that's going to make the situation even worse. But in other times, when I would be a witness or a spectator to somebody else doing something unkind to someone else, that's when I usually would kind of step in and have my say in that and try to resolve whatever situation it was, because I didn't want that on me, right? I didn't want that on me. It reminds me of somebody out in the schoolyard getting the poop beaten out of them, and everybody's all around these two boys. Let's call them two boys, rolling around in the dirt or on the concrete, pounding the poop out of each other, and the rest of the people are just stopping people from jumping in and joining in, or they're laughing, or they're cheering them on. That's terrible, right? I had a circumstance in high school where there was a big crowd of girls. The the bell went to go to the next class, and there was a big crowd of girls all around this one girl that was in the middle, and she didn't even know that her hair was on fire. One of the mean girls, and yes, she was one of the mean girls. I wonder sometimes how she grew up, if she ended up in jail or having serious problems, right? That this person was genuine. I spotted them a mile away. These are the ones that, right, I would try to avoid all the time. And they would quite often be some of the popular kids, right? Sometimes they would be able to get away with all kinds of stuff because people didn't see them the same way I saw them. But this one time, everybody saw what she did because she took a lighter and she lit this girl's hair, and her hair, because it's the 70s and 80s, right, we wore hairspray, and that hairspray is just like fire starter. You just go poof, right? And that's exactly what happened to this girl, and everybody was laughing and cheering them on and ridiculing the girl, and the girl was just standing there all confused, right? Because she didn't even know her head was on fire until she knew that her head was on fire. And I had to push my, because I was on the outside of that ring of girls, and there was a lot of them, like 30 of them, right? And I had to push my way through, and I just pounded her head with the palms of my hand, and she had to go in for a really, really short haircut after that. And I knew exactly who had done that, right? She actually bragged about it afterwards, and I thought, I can't believe people do these kind of things. Like, this is dangerous. This is like somebody's life, right? It's not like sticks and stones, that kitty stuff. This is somebody's in danger kind of thing, right? Just kind of crazy. Okay, something I don't understand is why people who are cruel and abuses are considered popular. The girl who started the fire should have been jailed. You know, I have my yearbook sitting behind me on my bookcase, and I could pull up her picture, right? But this is not the person that I am. If she ever popped into this live show, she would know exactly that I was talking about her, and I would hopefully give her, jog her memory a little bit to consider all the things that she did to me, because she was something else. But in the lessons that I've picked up along the way, I've come to understand these are the most hurt people, right? These are the most abused, neglected, demoralized, shamed people when they do these kind of things. And I have to say, she was probably somebody who went through a almost the same kind of experience that I went through when I was a kid. I am grateful I never went that route in being a bully. I mean, I very easily could have been because I was a big girl, right? I was big and I could be scary, right? I had it in me, but it never it never usually came to the surface. I was more shy and introverted, and I didn't normally jump into situations, but because I could relate because of how I was treated, I didn't want people to be treated the same way. And I would get myself in trouble, especially at home if my parents found out. Not so much my dad, but my mom would go right off the bunkers, right? It would just be an excuse to have her moment of exertion, right? It was something. But I'm grateful for those lessons because if I were to bump into her today, and like I said, like the person that she was, that was in her, right? That was definitely part of her persona. She wasn't doing it for show. Maybe part of it was to project more glory on herself, if you can even look at it that way. But there was something broken. For sure, there was something broken. But each one of us gets the choice as to what direction do we want to go with that? What do you want to do? Because that can be ammo, right? I could have jumped in and beat the poop out of her for what she was doing to that other girl, but that wasn't the person I was. I never started fights. In my entire life, I was never anyone who started fights. I was actually quite an avoidant. I didn't like conflict in any way because conflict found me. So I wasn't going to go searching for it. I was the chubby girl. I was obese. It was hard to hide, but I tried. I tried to be invisible. What didn't do me, and it didn't do me any good. But some people, you know, they have it in them, right? It's something. Once you turn in that direction, it's something that you usually keep, right? Without getting a lot of counseling, right? Whether you go to a psychiatrist or therapist, um, I had my father, right? I had an aunt I could talk to. My sisters, maybe not so much, but I had a balance. It wasn't a balance of things were always good, not spectacular, not bad. My balance was I had lots of hairy scary, and I had lots of love and affection and kindness in my life. So I got a good glimpse of those two extremes in my personal life. So, I understood because it was in my life that extreme. And I can spot those people in a minute, right? Those are definitely the bullies, right? They're but they're not they're not um narcissistic. Not all narcissists, people always say like the narcissist is like the demon and stuff. That's not true because in comparison to some of these other ones, they don't go for the jugular. Yes, they're loud. Yes, they can say nasty things, right? Yes, they think they're boss, right? But there's something different. That evilness is not there with the narcissist. they're exerting energy, like they exert that energy. But these other characters, they're also exerting energy, but they are exerting it with a madness, right? And that's where abuse kicks in. Those are the scary ones. I'm grateful that I recognize them. I I've been around narcissists, right? My entire life. I have a family that got, right? I'm not the only empath in my family, and we are highly sensitive to drawing in these characters in our lives because they see it in us. They see that meekness, that I did this for the loser sign. They see it in us, right? And they can spot the nerdy kids and the and the codependents and the people who are non-confrontational, right? Because you could say, like, I would, my eyes would just go, oh, oh, what's up, right? And they'd see it in my face, and it would just make me a target. Also, disabilities. People see the disabilities, and they'll target that too, right? They're only looking for someone that's inferior, that they perceive to be inferior to them, so that they can, right, um, go into that stream. But we have to recognize, right, whether that's somebody just letting off steam, somebody who's got a big mouth that you can walk away from, or if that's somebody who is dangerous, like this girl who lit the this other girl's hair on fire. And if she did that right in the middle of the school day, in the hallway of the school, and had cheerleaders and people who were rooting her on, and I had to fight to get through that ring that was surrounding them, that what else was she capable of, right? I hope she found her way as an adult. I hope she found her way, right? But I was in the same school as her right into my senior years, and she didn't change any bit, not in any way. And she always went for the jugular. She always went for the jugular. And that's the difference. Somebody who's going for the jugular and somebody who's just wanting to puff themselves up, right? Yeah. I recognize those people. I could spot them in a minute. Uh, I believe that most people who habitually cruel and bullying, abusing as they grow up are rarely very sorry for what they did if they think of it at all. Curious that you say that, Andrew, because I have, you hear of these people sometimes who go out of their way to find people that they bullied in school and to apologize and stuff. Or, sometimes they find Jesus, right? And in finding Jesus, they become a different person, don't they? They become somebody else. And, you feel bad for the sins of the past, right? I believe that people do, but I also know that some people are inherently evil. And I agree with you there, but I don't understand if it's truly all of them. Again, some of them, they're sorry because they got caught, right? There's that one too. Sometimes there's that turnaround when they recognize that there's a price to pay, when they have to go to jail, or they lose their children, or they get divorced because they're abusing their spouses, right? There's that too. But yeah. Cindy, I imagine that fire starter in your school. I wonder if she ever became a parent. Scary, scary thought. I'd be curious to know a little bit I probably could Google her. I have her name. I got her picture. I could probably track her down if I wanted to, just to find out, but I'm gonna have to assume that she would have been in some kind of trouble somewheres along the line, because people like that are drawn to that kind of stuff because it's what makes them feel important, right? Makes them feel like they're better than others. Now I understand, a lot of times it's because they came through some of those really dynamic families and they decided to go a different route than being meek. They decided to be the bully, right? I went a different route than that. Andrew says, I was bullied and picked on in 3 different states. Not once have I ever gotten an apology, nor do I expect one. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Yeah, lots of that. This is one thing I love about this day and age. Like people always grumble and complain. They say, this is the worst of times, like this is, oh my goodness. No, it's not. Like we are getting better. It's a slow process, but we are getting better. Here in Canada, we have bullying campaigns, right? We have, what do they call, goodwill checkups on families and stuff like this. Children are taught about child and family services so that they understand if they get themselves in situations at home that there are places to go, that they will be listened to and supported. you know Abuse is something that is taken very seriously. We are trying to right our wrongs. Like we have gotten it wrong. Like, the residential schools is a fine example of what we did, right? Because we really did a job on our Indigenous community for sure. And they are struggling, but lots of them also have taken up that banner and decided to be the example and the evidence for other people that it can be done. They are some of my favorite content creators online. I support them. They're always getting the thumbs up. I'm not big on doing the comments and stuff, but for the thumbs up and stuff, always, right? Because that's how we learn, right? By giving that credit to the people who are putting the good word out, who are being the stewards in their communities. Yeah. And it's a sad thing, being a bully. That is incredible. It's an incredible, scary, demoralizing problem that leaves us with problems right into our adulthood. And, even for myself, it took me a long time to even understand that saying, hurt people, right? But like you said, Andrew, I would be curious to know how her how her life was. She was one of the very worst in our school, to tell you the truth. She did it to a lot of people, but if you kind of watched at who she did that to, right? She was one of the popular girls, and she hung out with all the guys in the sports departments and stuff, and all her friends were the pretty it girls and stuff in class. They'd sit up against their lockers with their boyfriends and, just say mean things to everybody as they were walking down the hallway, or they jump up and scare you or threaten you or say, I'll see you outside at 3 o'clock, right? And then you would have to see them at 3 o'clock, because if you didn't meet them at 3 o'clock, then you would get it, right? You would look like a coward. You would, right? And I didn't like to look like a coward. I was a bit of a coward, but I didn't like to look like one. And yeah, I would always meet up at 3 o'clock. But sometimes, I understood people were just mouths. They knew that if their parents knew that they were going to get in trouble in a fight, and I was that person who would go and knock on their mom's door with I never had a bleeding nose in my entire life, but black eye or scratches on my face or something, and I'd be bawling my eyes out and I go, "What happened to you?" I go, "Oh, your daughter beat me up." Right? Just in the idea that maybe the parents might take care of business. And sometimes it worked. Sometimes these kids never bothered me again because they knew I would take action in it, that I wouldn't turn the other cheek. Right? I was a truth teller. I was. It caused me lots of problems in school. It caused me lots of problems at home, right? If I could turn life around a little bit, I might have zipped it up a little bit more in what I know now. But that's my makeup, right? And I wouldn't want to stifle the person that I am or the person that I was back then because even if I was doing a little bit of chameleon, that was still me in that moment, right? And I take accountability in that. Um, I heard just yesterday that a common thing among serial killers is that they were spoiled as children. Oh, really, Andrew? I never heard that. I knew quite often that the serial killers were abused, right? But then again, it kind of makes sense if the children were spoiled and they always got what they wanted and they grow up to be adults and they're no longer treated that way, right? Yeah, I might have to look a little bit of that up there, Andrew. Read up a little bit on that. I looked up on Facebook someone who mistreated me in high school. She seems to be living a comfortable, affluent life and is now a grandmother. It would be interesting if one of her children or grandchildren treated the same as she treated me and maybe others also, or you had that opportunity to bump into those grandchildren and tell a little bit of a story about when you were kids with their grandmother, right? Maybe they would look at their grandmother a little differently, or maybe they would open up to you, Andrew, right? And say, "Oh my goodness, is that why grandma's so strict?" Right? And maybe these are kids that never had anybody to listen to them, that they never thought that anybody would listen to them, right? That was my story. My mother found out I talked to anybody about anything that was going on in the house, right? Even to my father, right? I wasn't allowed to speak to anything about my father. Every once in a while, I couldn't help it because it was so bad, being the truth teller I was, right? Didn't always zip my, but I got it, right? You get it 10 times worth to teach me a lesson to never do it again. But my mother always used that idea: don't say anything to your dad, you're going to give him a heart attack, right? That's, that's what my mother would do. You're going to give your dad a heart attack. Don't say anything to him. Don't talk to the counselors. Don't get us involved in the schools, right? And then every once in a while, the counselors, they all knew that there was something going on in my life. They all knew there was something different about me. And, every once in a while, they get me into their counselor's room and give me little chit chats, and after a few little chit chats they get me to open up a little bit, and then finally I've got somebody who's going to listen to me, and they finally get me to break down with the whole story of what's going on, and then they finally they wouldn't even discuss it with me, and I'd be begging them, "Don't ever talk to my mom, don't ever phone my house," and they always promised, but in the end they'd always say, "Well, I think it's about time we brought your parents into this." And they did not know my mother. They had no clue as to my mother's fury. Yeah, that was something. But that's what they do, right? That's the to make it, because they have they're supposed to be upstanding citizens within their community, aren't they? And and yeah, that's the role that they want to play. And it's unfortunate because even to this day, these are conversations for the most part. I don't talk too much about it with my family. They know what went on, but it's not up for open discussion, isn't it? It's something in the past. That was our family, right? And you're an adult now, and grow up. Right? But they don't understand that these experiences that we have when we're little kids, they carry on into our adulthoods, and we end up living with hypervigilance. We have fear issues. We have codependency issues. We have avoidant issues where it's difficult. We're supposed to be populating the world so we don't get extinct. But these parents make it so that the kids don't even want to have relationships when they grow up. They don't know how to have relationships when they grow up because our parents are the examples for us, right? That it becomes an avoidant situation. Yeah, it's for your entire life. And if you're lucky, right, you get to understand what went wrong. You can read it for yourself, and just understanding for yourself, it gives you permission to move on. Even if you can just find one person who believes you, who believes your story, who doesn't mind sitting in and listening, because quite often it's in the talking, the crying, and the time. And we do the crying and we do the time, but we don't ever talk about it because we were taught to, right? Keep it zipped. Don't tell your dad you're going to give him a headache. Don't talk to anybody at school. We don't want to get involved in what's going on at school, right? Yeah. But yeah, you carry that stuff through your entire life, 100%, Kathy. And it's so sad because we end up living these. You hear all the time that people wear masks, right? And that's exactly why they're wearing the mask, to hide that pain, right? And then, of course, that's where the addictions come from because you have to cope somehow, right? With me, it was food, right? With me, even as a little kid, I would squirrel food like I was a squirrel, and I'd have them in little batches hidden all over the bedroom and stuff like that. And that was my secret stash because I was a starving little kid. They knew exactly that, it was hard to say, well, why can't Cindy lose weight? Well, they knew that Cindy was just buying her own junk food because that's how I coped. That was my rebellion within my own family, right? You say I can't have that piece of pie, or I can't have ice cream when everybody else is having ice cream, that I can't have ice cream. I'll show you. And by 10 years old, I'm working almost full time, right? I'm working almost full time and I'm buying my own food, right? I'm not saying no to myself. That was the rebellion in me, right? And that carried on through my entire life. And you guys know, at 27 years old, I weighed 311 pounds at 27 years old. And I had to have an operation to help me lose that weight. And it's still been a battle my entire life. Yes, maybe I never got much past 200 pounds after that, but it was still a battle, right? It's still having those moments where I'm saying no to myself, but then there's those times when I'm saying yes because I had a stressful day. And not only a stressful day, I would reward myself with food too, right? If I got something accomplished, I would reward myself. If I got something done and I was relieved and the pressure was off of me, that was also a time to celebrate. When I had my friends over and there were boys that I liked, right? That would be that would be my affection, would be the food, right? It was it was but it could have been something worse. It really, I have to say, there are worse things out there. But what I was doing was dangerous too, wasn't it? See me now, the situation that I got in, that I ended up being anemic and now I'm on iron pills. And those iron pills burn my stomach. I can only take my iron pill before I go to bed so that I'm asleep while it's doing its job, because it just burns a hole in my stomach for sure, that iron, right? And it's still going to be for another month that I'm on those iron pills, but I'm seeing the benefit of them. My blood pressure on a few days has come down to normal, which I wasn't expecting. And some of those other things, like I was saying, the inflammation, that has dissipated too, right? And my digestive system, well, that's not going so well, because you guys know what iron pills do to you, right? So I'm kind of struggling. I'm struggling there, but I'm managing, and it's making a huge difference. And after that month and a half, I'm going to be curious to see how I really do feel. And I will make sure that I stay on the iron, not to that extent that I'm doing now, maybe an iron pill every couple of days or something, or every few days. But I'll never let myself. And that was my own fault, because when I had that operation, that was one of the vitamins they told me that I'd have to take my entire life. And all I did was take my multivitamins and all those other ones. And I don't know why I didn't keep up on the iron. But eventually, I totally forgot about how important the iron was. And yeah, I got myself in that state, but we're working on it now, right? I got myself a good doctor, right? So we are going to do better by ourselves moving forward. But at the same time, I understand it's an ongoing process. It really is an ongoing process. Hello, Eugene. I agree. What happened to us is part of who and what we are. You can just set it down and walk away. I wish it was that easy, Andrew. I mean, I have done that, set it down and walked away and not thought back on it at all, and be amazed at it and be happy and have that sense of accomplishment for doing it. But I still have not conquered the pink ice donuts. I really still have not conquered the the eating. I don't, right? It's a lot of yes and no with me, right? Yeah. Um I hope you're doing good tonight, Eugene. Oh, you can't set it down and walk away. And that's true, and that's true too, but each one of us gets to make that decision, don't we? Right? It is in our own choices, and those are choices that only we can make. Just like I had that choice whether to be the truth teller or not. And sometimes I was, sometimes I wasn't, because I knew there were consequences in that. But what if it was going to serve, right? If it was going to bring something to the surface, if it was going to make somebody feel like they were not in it alone, I didn't have a problem telling my story, right? Right? Because that's something that no child should ever have to go through, no matter how hurting that parent is. The children need to know that they are loved. They have to know that. And if you're not going to love your children, don't have the children, right? There are lots of people out there who can't have the children and would love to love your children if you don't love them, right? But don't mishandle, don't treat them like they don't matter, because in the end it does matter, and there are people out there who are clear examples that it does matter, and then they're the ones that end up having to pick up those broken plates and try and glue them back together, because we feel it's our responsibility, because we are the ones who knows what it feels like, right? Yeah. Okay, I didn't mean to get onto that subject tonight, but it is what it is. But my sister was so pleased today to get that air conditioner hooked up in her bedroom. She said her cat's kind of afraid of that air conditioner, doesn't like vacuums and stuff. And yes, it has a motor. But once my sister goes to bed, that cat will jump up in the bed and curl up beside her. And it'll take a couple of nights, but that cat will be perfectly fine, and it will be so happy to have an air conditioner in its favorite spot, because that cat loves her bedroom. Yeah. But anything new and exciting in any of your guys' lives this week? Yeah, I agree with you there, Andrew, about the mean people, right? But yeah, they have that pattern. But again, it's in our choices. The empath and the narcissist, they have the same experience, but they relate to it differently. They cope with it differently. They see it differently, right? And that's why I don't appreciate, that there's so much narcissist bashing out there, because they're the narcissists, right? But you can just say, shut your mouth, right? I'm out of here. You don't want me as a friend? See you on the beach. You don't want me as a girlfriend? Right? I am out of here. But then there's the brutality ones. And once they get into that actual brutality where they're hitting you, right? And demoralizing you, like they're purposely trying to put you in a position where you just can't crawl out of your hole emotionally or mentally in any way. Those are the ones that are go for the jugulars. That's that 1 out of 10 that I was always talking about, right? 3 out of 10 people that you meet, they're not going to like you, right? But 2 out of those 3 people that don't like you, they're going to have been brought up by good parents, or learned values through church, or through their grandparents, or through schooling, or their friends. And they'll know better to open up their mouth. They might mumble, they might think it in their brain, but they're not going to go for the jugular. But there's that 1 out of 10, like that woman that I was talking about with the lighter to that my friend's hair. She ended up being one of my best friends in high school. This girl, I put her hair out, I put her fire out in her hair, but we didn't become friends after that, right? She didn't know really who I was, and I was in her class. She didn't really know who I was. But after that day, she paid a little bit more attention, and slowly, just by maybe her thinking that she has to maybe say hi to me in the hallway just out of courtesy, because I did save her head, that me saying hi to her over the course of the year, that by the end of the year that we had become friends, and we ended up being very, very good friends. Those last couple of years of high school were some of my best years in school, to tell you the truth. It's where I had some teachers who appreciated me and took some interest in me and suggested drama class for me in drama class. opened me right up in helping me to be a little bit more social. Like doing musicals, you know how scary it was for me to sing? It was so scary for me. And yet everybody, and it wasn't a phony baloney, it wasn't a one-off like one person. It was just like everybody was just shocked how good I sang in that musical that we had done. And they all came up and congratulated me and told me how great I sang in that. And I was so scared. Like, I was so scared. I thought I was going to pass out. That's how scared I was, because this was an experience that I had as a maybe a couple of years earlier, and I had a really scary experience because well, it's a story that I'm in this moment not wanting to talk about it, but it was scary, it was bad, and you know I lost that love for singing, right? That And this is what happened to me all the time. Like, now that I'm just telling that story about me singing, it was the same story about when I was a competitive swimmer, right? In high school. And then when I gained that weight, I didn't want people to see me in my baby bathing suit because they'd be calling me fatso and stuff. So I gave up swimming. But I also remember there was another experience where we had school dance, and I was dancing with one of the guys at school, and he told me to slow down because I looked like a chicken with my head chopped off. And this was somebody I really liked. And I was devastated by him saying that, and it shut me down from dancing. But it didn't shut me down for dancing for my entire life, because I still love to swim, right? I'm not excited about getting in a bathing suit, but I'm not terrified. And also, what you think about me is I can't do anything about that, right? Also, uh, I came to be able to dance again because again I worked in bars and nightclubs, and one of my favorite things to do is with our group of friends, we would all go up there and have our own little circle of friends up on the dance floor, and we would just dance. And it was so much fun. Like, it was so much fun. And even if I was 300 pounds, I was up on that dance floor and I was having so much fun. So I overcame my fear of dancing. It was a lot later than, right? Because I think I was in like seventh or eighth grade when that happened with school dance, right? But that affected me right up into my adulthood in that. But then again, that squelching my love for singing. I'm not a big fan of music, you guys, right? When I'm here at home, I'm online, right? I'm not listening to music. I'm not. I like the silence. When I'm washing dishes or doing housework or cleaning the floor, right? I'm not into the music. In fact, I have to say that I don't know a lot of songs. Unless they're Donny Osmond or Barbara Streisand, I wouldn't know a song from beginning to end, and that's the truth. I could pop in on a chorus, right? And you hear songs on the radio when you go for drives and stuff. But when I go out on my trips in September, I don't have the radio on. I don't have CDs in the CD player. I'm not listening to music. I'm looking at the beautiful landscape and I'm having conversations with myself. And that's the truth. I like to spend time with myself. Some of my best insights and understandings and curiosity, what takes me on topics that I think, well, why am I researching this? And then go, wow, that just hits home and exactly what I was thinking about or what I was working on. Who thought that that would be something that was important to me, right? And sure enough, you know, sometimes we do come out of these insecurities, and that's the truth. But we don't come out of those insecurities by just telling ourselves that we're coming out of those insecurities, right? I started swimming again. I started dancing again. Did I start singing again? Well, during high school, right? But in that appreciation for actually having a voice, oh my goodness, when I said that, I know when I stopped singing. Oh my goodness. I went to visit a friend after high school was over. I went back to Vancouver for my high school reunion. One of my friends had her own apartment in a basement. She had a basement suite and she had to go to work. And so I was left in the apartment and I was singing in the apartment and I was cleaning her house. I even remember the song. It was Chiquitita by ABBA. And I was singing this song, right? So, you know, it was like the late 80s. And maybe it was 1990, because that would have been my 10-year high school reunion, 1990. And whoever lived upstairs came downstairs and said, "Stop that racket! I'm doing something. Stop that racket!" And it squashed me. Oh my goodness. I forgot about that one. Right? I was easy to squash. I was easy to be made to feel insecure. Yeah. And that's the truth. And it shuts us down. But it's got to be in our own choices whether or not to come back to, right? Maybe I need to sing more, right? Maybe you put me in that state that I'm going to turn on YouTube music tomorrow, and as I'm doing my thing, I'm going to listen to music. I do sometimes. I put the 70s playlist on just as background stuff, but it's not for very long because, like I said, I like to be in the quiet and I like to be in my own space, right? In that spending time with myself. That's curious. I never thought of those things before. All those things that I was curious, but what I was going to say is you just can't think it through. You have to put the action in it. You have to, right? It's like getting right back on the horse. You get kicked off a horse, you got to get right back on the horse, right? The roller coaster when I was a little kid. I never got back on. Oh, you guys, you're sending me on a trip right now because I'm thinking of all these things that terrified me that I don't do anymore, like getting into the ocean because of the sharks. Watching that movie Jaws, and I never went back into the ocean again. You guys, don't make me go back into the ocean. Right? But so many things. It was just being crushed. And when I was crushed the first time, I never got back on that horse. And that's the idea. You have to get right back to it because if you don't get right back onto it, you're going to talk yourself out of it every single time. And that's the truth. Wow. I never thought of it, but now I'm going to have to make a list of things that I don't appreciate, right? That to see where the experience was because I can see now every time I shut myself down in something that I was doing, it was because I had a squash moment, an experience that kind of said, "That's it. You can't do it anymore." Really interesting. And the idea is to do it, right? Whatever it is, you just got to do it. I don't have any oceans around me, but that doesn't mean that I'll never be around the oceans, and I'm going to remember this story, and I'm going to remember if I go back to Vancouver for a visit or something that I'm going to go and go for a swim. I might not swim out to the barges like I used to, right? But I'm going to go and swim in the ocean, right? To Because it is in our actions that we can overcome the things that we're insecure about. Really curious, you guys. Never even thought of that before. I'm going to have to make a list. That's going to be on my list of things to do tomorrow. All those things that I don't do anymore, that I refuse to do, or I used to love, but I don't love anymore. Tomorrow, I'm going to have my top 70s soft rock, 70s and 80s soft rock tunes playing on YouTube music. That's what I'm going to do tomorrow, right? And just because, music, they say music soothes the wild beast, right? There's this one guy on YouTube, and he takes his guitars to different zoos and stuff, and he plays music for the animals, and the animals absolutely love that. Sometimes he'll go out in the middle of a cow field, and all the cows will come running and hover around him and listen to the music, him playing on his guitar and stuff. So we'll see about that. Also, you guys, I kind of been picking up Tai Chi. Right now, I'm just working on balance because I recognize that my balance is not great anymore. So I'm doing balance moves in Tai Chi. That's all I'm doing because my balance is, it's going to be some work in the Tai Chi, and there's lots of good lessons and in balance when you're doing Tai Chi. And I've been doing it, and it's non-impact, and I've been enjoying it because it's something. Well, what I've been doing is what I originally wanted to do is I wanted to bring Tai Chi music, right? I wanted to bring like Chinese, Oriental, Asian music, and then do Tai Chi to that. But instead of what I've been doing is I've been putting Carl Jung on, and I've been doing my Tai Chi in front of the desk, right? Because I have the air conditioner and stuff, and I've been doing my balance exercise, and right now I'm doing balance in just my legs, and then I halfway through I incorporate my hands in that balance, right? And then at the end I have to close my eyes and do it. And I find when I close my eyes, it's really hard to keep my balance. But yeah, Tai Chi, you guys, great. It's actually quite enjoyable. I never thought that I would enjoy it. I thought maybe I would go to the little city parks. I have a couple of really nice parks close by to where I live, and I thought, oh, I could go there on the comfortable days where it's not too hot and right, put my headphones on and do my do my Tai Chi, right? But I need to get the balance down first. I'm doing the arm. I'm introducing little things, right, as you go, but I want to do it slow. I want to do it slow. And because I recognize that my balance is the one that I'm having most difficulty with, that's the one that I'm working on right now. And once I've got that down packed, then I'll start introducing more moves in the Tai Chi. But without that balance, I don't want to slip and fall and hurt myself, right? So I thought working on my balance is a good place to start. They say walking, learning to walk in one spot is the best place to start when you start with Tai Chi. But I noticed that it's actually, for me at the very least, it's in the balance, right? I did a couple of those Karate Kid moves and stuff with my leg up in the air, and I just topple right over. I broke one of my favorite crystals doing that, but it's in practicing and it's fun, right? And it's important to bring new things into your life all the time. And I thought this might be something good for me, and I think it probably is something good for me. It's keeping me active, and also at the same time it's helping me with my balance, because I didn't recognize that my balance was not that great, right? Lots of things that I don't recognize about myself. I appreciate it when it's brought to my attention so that I can do something about it. Um, in the town where I grew up, a girl set another girl's hair on fire in the choir loft during a church service. When the girl who set the other girl on fire turned 18, she was given some money and told by her parents and family to leave town, right? So again, lots of times there's that necessity, and you can question as to why. I mean, these children grow up this way, and they have examples in their life. So right away, I don't want to go straight to the right to that judgment that it was that girl's problem. But maybe when she did leave home and got a little bit of money and she left home, maybe she was able to get her life together. I hope so. Yeah, I hope so. um I believe that most people who are habitually cruel, bullying, abusing as they grow up are rarely very sorry for what they did. Yeah, if they think of it at all. I really do hope that they do think about it. And in saying that, I also have to say a story. I still remember his name. His name was Joe Coelho, and he was one of the sports guys, right? He was big, he was handsome, and he was very kind, right? He didn't always stick up for me because he was in that it crowd, right? Of people who did treat me badly. But when I crossed him in the hallway when he was by himself, he always said hello first. I never said hello first to anybody, right? Sometimes he'd ask me how my day was, and we'd have small conversations because I think he was in the drama class too, that a few sentences might have been thrown my way, but I remembered he was at the very best, the best of the best of that crew, and he was always very kind to me. And I really hope that he did well. I suspect that you got to give credit to the parents, right? When the children grow up with good values and they don't judge people, they give people a fair shot, because maybe I was not a nice person. He doesn't know, right? But you don't know unless you get close to me, unless you have a conversation with me, unless you hang out with me, right? But don't right off the hops judge somebody and says, okay, that's my next victim. Yeah. But so I have to be fair in that. There were lots of people, even if they didn't take my side in things, they didn't stick up for me, right? They didn't call their friends off of me. They did, in their small ways, let me know that they were sorry for what was happening to me. And that's the truth, right? So I have to appreciate that too. Um, Coming down, lost where I was left off. I don't want to get so far away. Uh, Coming down here in the comments. Oh, I'm not too far behind. Um, Hi, Cindy and Prairie Dodgers and everyone else here. My truck broke down and I had to get a brand new starter on it. Sorry that I'm late. I finally got my truck fixed. Oh, that must have been scary, Tammy. Where did you stop? Where did your truck stop on you? Was it super inconvenient? Because I know with the starter, right? It's like you turn the key and nothing happened. So I hope you weren't out in the middle of the freeway or stuck in a parking lot somewheres, that it wasn't too inconvenient for you to get that truck back on the road. It's nice that you popped in. It was nice that you popped in. Um, Looks to be quiet here this week. I did decide to ahead with cortisone shots for your knees. Good, Andrew, before surgery. No surgery date yet, but at least it's going to bring the pain and it's going to bring the swelling down, right, Andrew? So I'm hoping you're going to feel good. Now, just keep in mind, just because you're feeling good doesn't mean that you are good. So don't think you're going to go for a jog or anything like that, or do anything like go for a bike ride around the city and stuff, because you're not feeling the aches and pains. But that's some good news, because I don't want to hear that you're struggling in any way, right? Um, Andrew says, "Woo, glad that truck situation was taken care of, Tammy." Well, I'm glad it is too. I hope you were not too inconvenienced with the funds, because I know it does cost money, especially when it's in spur of the moment, because they always do a little bit overcharging in that. Hopefully, if you're lucky, you knew somebody. You do lots of kindnesses for people, Tammy. So I'm kind of optimistic if you got the car part. Maybe somebody put that car part in for you. That would be kind of nice if somebody did that. Um, but yeah, oh my goodness. That probably put you in a state, right? That little bit of frazzle when the wrench, right? We're saying when the wrench got thrown into the engine. And that's right. That analogy is kind of suited for what happened to you, Tammy. And yeah, I hope that one is over and done with, and you don't have any more life catastrophes coming into your life for a little while at the very least, right? That you can have a little bit of a break from the mishaps that happen. And you just had a big car repair done on your vehicle too, didn't you, Tammy? Oh my goodness. And I know we're not all in that situation that we're able to put the funds in to get new vehicles, right? My car, I won't be saving for that car until till November, when my pension kicks in, and then I'm allotting um, a lot of those funds towards a vehicle and my income tax return. So I got to be very careful not to ruin my glasses, not to break my computer or my laptop, that my air conditioner doesn't break down on me. And if we can manage not having those things um, messed with, then I should be able to have a vehicle for next spring. And so I'm excited by that. I'm actually quite excited to be able to have those financial worries off of my back. You know, I thought about it yesterday in my live show. Yesterday I was talking about, my trip in September, that this will be possibly the first year that I might not go. I'm not saying I'm not going on this trip, but in the moment all I've got put away is the grocery money and the gas money. I don't have a vehicle, and I don't have the money for the camp spots, right? And so I had that on me, but I can't have that on me because it wears on me, and I want to love my life. I want to enjoy my life. But at the same time, I want to be that example, because you guys all know that that is the one thing I give to myself every year. And being that example, being that evidence for others, wouldn't it be cool if somehow in that miracle that I'm still able to do that trip in in September? That would be absolutely amazing. My sister at the moment is not able to drive her car. There is a possibility, teeny, weeny, weeny one, that if she's still not able to drive her car, that she might let me have it for my trip, right? That would be absolutely amazing. Uh, but I would much prefer that she does have her license by then so that she can, right, cheer herself up because she needs that desperately, desperately. My sister needs that good cheer. My sister has been getting kicked, one kick after another, and it's been going on for years now, and we thought she was coming out of it and she went right back into it, and her emotional and mental well-being is suffering in that. And we are all surrounding her, right? We're trying to keep her all cheery. There's nothing we can do except ride those waves. But if we can keep her in a upbeat mood, right, and looking forward, setting some goals for herself, right? Maybe a trip for some new clothes that she can go shopping and buy some new outfits, that she can resolve some of these, what she thinks are big issues, but that could easily, in a moment, change into something insignificant. And that's a possibility. I mean, she had that triple heart bypass, right? And she flew through it, and then she went and broke her leg, and then she got low potassium, and then she oh my goodness, it just goes on and on with that girl. But she's a never give up. She is a never give up, but she's emotionally taking a beating in that. So I was really happy that we went over to the house today, to her place today, and we put that air conditioner in for her, and she'll be able to have a good sleep in her bedroom with her cats, because it's like I said, it's like 113 Fahrenheit, right? it's 45 degrees Celsius with the humidity here in Winnipeg today. And that's really quite high. And I know lots of people who are struggling. And like I said, there was that lady today, and she had that rollaway cooler, and she had full of bottled waters and Gatorades, and she had a big sign on it: "Help yourself, keep cool, wish you well, God bless." And I just thought, oh my goodness, this is just like the most amazing thing that she was doing, right? Especially right in a community where we do have lots of homeless people. But also to say, when I went to the grocery store today, I walked down the back alley. I walked down the back alley because it's a little bit more Mother Nature, right? I'm not trying to avoid people or anything like that, right? It's just that there's trees and gardens, and there's a little library. And I guess some rascals, they broke the glass on it, they fixed the door, then they broke the door on it, and they fixed the door on it. Then they knocked it off its hinges, and then it was like nailed to a big tree stump, and they just knocked it right over, and it kind of, the growth came in, the spring growth came in, and so it was in there in the bushes, but it wasn't being used because somebody smashed it. And the house where they put up this little library in their back alley, um, I could see through the holes in the fence that they were sitting at their picnic table in their backyard, and they were just socializing in the heat, right? And I noticed that they put up the little library again. My husband must have hammered a new base for it, got it up, and the wife painted it and fixed the door and put flowers and stuff on it. It looked quite lovely. So I kind of spoke through the fence. It was a great big tall fence, like a 8 or 9 foot high fence, wood fence, right? But they had little slats like this in between the fence. And I said, "Thank you so much for putting the little library back up. Oh, it's so beautiful. You did such a good job." And I didn't see them. Right? I only knew because they were talking and stuff in the backyard. Uh, and you could just hear the, the gratitude, the excitement that somebody appreciated the work that they did. Oh, they said, "Oh, thank you so much." And I said, "No, thank you. I'll bring some books tomorrow." I didn't say that, but I thought it. I'll bring some books tomorrow. So I got to make sure that I bring some books for their little library. It stayed up for years and years, as long as I've lived in this building. I've been here, what, at least 5 or 6 years now. It's been a long time. So grateful. So grateful for the roof over my head. It so easily could have been a different story, right? But that little library has always been there, and and it was maybe beaten up a few times, but it stood. And it was only a couple of months that it was out of commission, but it showed up again. So I'm going to take some books and I'm going to stuff some books in there for people, right? So that they can enjoy the little library again. But you could just see the the appreciation that somebody appreciated what they did in putting it back together. Yeah, it was kind of amazing. Thank you for making it in tonight, Tammy. Thank you for making it in. Yeah, and again, like I said, I hope your truck holds out, right? I know you have been putting some repairs into it, right? And I know repairs, like I said, they can be expensive. Yeah, they can be expensive. Oh my goodness, it's after 9 o'clock already. And it's just Cindy jibber jabbering away. You guys, if any one of you want to come in and have a conversation, just a private conversation, I have to practice on my Zoom. And I would much appreciate it if anybody ever wanted to come in and do a Zoom call with me. Just message me and let me know you would be in, and I would set it up for you, and we could have a little cup of coffee and a chit chat. It's just that I'm not super technically inclined, and I did miss out on what I thought was going to be an amazing opportunity. And silly me, but I take accountability for it. But I do need to practice in the Zoom calls, right? So if anybody ever wants to have a conversation with me, just looking down below in the description. My email is there. If you don't have it, I know most of you guys here that you do have my email. Just message me and we'll set something up, right? I'd love to meet you guys and be blown away by what you look like, because I have my own ideas how some of you look like, how old you are, what you look like in my imagination, right? And maybe your sense of style. Maybe I put a kind of a sense of style on you too. But when I only have our conversation in the messaging here, right? I guess that's all of our prerogatives to attach what we think somebody looks like or what somebody actually is, right? So, yeah. Okay, you guys, that's going to be it for me tonight. I am going to finish my cup of coffee. I'm going to enjoy my air conditioner, right? And yeah, we're going to call it a day. I don't think I did a lot of running around today. So I think tomorrow will be just maybe a laundry day, my Tai Chi, and listening to music as I'm doing things around the house, right? So that's what I promised that I would do. And those things that we get squashed in life, just in me and recognizing some of those things tonight as I was talking to you guys. Maybe you guys can make your own list of things that you don't do, right? And look back as to, why don't I do this anymore? What was the reason that I stopped? And then maybe you could just do a little example for yourself to see if maybe you can start it up again. Because again, for me, it was getting squashed in my emotionality, right? Getting my feelings hurt. And I go, okay, that's it. Never going to do it again, right? Yeah. So tomorrow, maybe I'll do a little bit of dancing around my living room and joining in on the chorus, right? Maybe I'll even sit down and watch the subtitles and learn the words of some of these tunes that I heard over and over again as teenagers, right? But right now, I would have no idea what the words were. Like I said, maybe jump in at the chorus, right? Okay, you guys, that's going to be it for me tonight. If you guys want to come and hang out with me during the week, Monday to Friday, 9 p.m. Central, what's my good cheer, right? If not, we'll see you next Sunday for Chatters Live. I made it to the comments again. I'm on a roll, you guys. Have a great night.